Hello, everyone. My name is Devin Noel Harrison. I live in the United States of America in Washington State, and I recently graduated from Seattle Pacific University with my Master's of Science in Research Psychology. I currently work as a research analyst at the state's Department of Education. I'm so excited to be here with you all and to discuss strategies of sustainability, specifically related to health and racism. The way we typically approach the conversation around trauma and racial discrimination isn't sustainable or empowering for the well being of those affected by it. The framing around these conversations don't often present hope or tangible solutions. It's important to talk about the negative outcomes, but if that's where the conversation ends, what does that leave us with? How does that inspire and empower communities? Additionally, we need to find better ways to utilize social media to our advantage. Constant access and exposure to traumatic events online can have many negative consequences, especially if one is witnessing violence against a member of one's own ethnic or racial group. How can we interact with social media in a more productive and positive way? My perspective is influenced by my research, the stress and growth in the Black community, which directly touches upon the theme of striving for sustainability. The aim of my study was to look at post-traumatic stress and growth among Black adults living in the United States after exposure to race-related traumatic events online. The consequences of being exposed to these traumatic events online can be damaging to the mental health of the Black community, especially if one's Black identity is important and salient to their overall well-being. My study uses the multidimensional model of racial identity to separate Black identity into three dimensions. Centrality, referring to how much one emphasizes racial group membership as part of their identity. Public regard, referring to how one personally feels about how other people view the Black community. And private regard, referring to how one personally feels about the Black community and their membership within that. Little research has looked at the negative effects of being exposed to racial discrimination online on the mental health of Black individuals. Few traditional measures and assessments used to diagnose PTSD even acknowledge racial trauma as a potential criterion for the disorder. This potentially leads to racially traumatic events being misdiagnosed or even clinically ignored. The correlation results indicate that there's a significant link between post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth. This signifies that the process of experiencing both may be very similar. And this makes a lot of sense because for post-traumatic growth to develop and manifest, some degree of post-traumatic stress is necessary that challenges one's belief to lead someone to prompt cognitive processing. Based on the correlations, I ran 3 mediation analyses with the analysis of traumatic events online, public regard, and post-traumatic stress being the only significant one, indicating that public regard does influence the relationship between traumatic events online and post-traumatic stress. A multiple regression analysis on post-traumatic growth was ran and showed that private regard, centrality, and traumatic events online predicted post-traumatic growth. Psychologists should further study this to understand how nuances in racial and ethnic identity lead to different outcomes when experiencing or witnessing trauma. My study reveals the negative impacts of witnessing online racial discrimination while also illuminating the positive changes that may be possible after exposure. Though these experiences can be debilitating, they can also be a catalyst for change and better psychological functioning. This can allow for Black and Indigenous people of color to come together to discuss such experiences and how to grow and cope after exposure. Understanding this relationship can help psychologists, researchers, and individuals find better ways to support and treat mental health within themselves and within communities of color. By acknowledging the egregious impacts of exposure to racial discrimination online, studying the nuances of racial and ethnic identities, and reframing the conversation around trauma to include the potential positive growth, I believe we as psychologists and researchers can build a sustainable future with a healthier population of people. Thank you.